Hello and welcome to Chemspec Digital 2021. I have the pleasure to introduce the next presentation in the Pharma Lecture Theatre. However, before I do, I would like to point out that we are recording this session and it will be available to view on demand. All attendees are invited to submit their questions via the chat function, which we will then read out at the end of the presentation. And now I will hand over to Dr. Jim Keay of Vertellus, who will be presenting Reimagined Pyridine synthesis and coupling reactions.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction and hello to all. Thank you all for joining our talk today, which has just been announced. We have entitled Reimagining Pyridine synthesis. Your attendance today is encouraging, as it indicates there is still interest in this versatile molecule and its derivative, which was first isolated almost 175 years ago. Pyridine derivatives are widely used in many industries, such as transportation and electronics, in addition to the expected life science applications in pharmaceuticals, crop protection, and as well as industrial applications. Pyridines occur naturally and are found in biological processes, and they're important in sustaining human life, which in part explains the continuing interest with this simple nitrogen-containing aromatic molecule. It's broadly used and continues to engage both academics and industrialists over the years. We've outlined our objective for this talk here. Although not a new molecule by any means, there are many options when pyridine derivatives are needed and as new applications are discovered and developed. As target molecules become more complex, they cannot be synthesized by traditional transformations. New approaches are needed. All construction of pyridines involve ring syntheses at some point. What we hope to provide you with today is an appreciation of the variety of approaches that can be used and that the complexity of the target often dictates the selected path. There are two practical approaches. First, from commercially available pyridine compounds, followed by chemical transformations on either the ring or the side chain, which we call derivatization. Secondly, building the target pyridine derivative from discrete carbon and nitrogen containing fragments and to build the required structure. This is more appropriately ring synthesis. Fragments anywhere from 1 to 5 carbons in length, along with an ammonia source, allows for a tailored approach to the target and seeks to avoid byproducts and isomers. A third approach is simply the combination of the two. And here we need to mention the coupling of pyridines to other aromatic and heterocycles. Interestingly, in these catalytic approaches, there is another role for the pyridine molecule to play as a catalyst support, designed to improve performance and the viability of the approach. Before we get started, just a bit of history of pyridine itself. Most people's first interaction with this colorless but oily liquid with a bad odor, actually a fishy smell, a mean smell, is in high school chemistry laboratory, where it is often used as the reagent in the Carl Fischer test for measuring moisture content. The discovery of pyridine and its structure dates back to the mid-1800s, while its industrial history spans more than the last 100 years. Pyridine was isolated for industrial purposes from crude coal tar, and in 1896, less than 20 years after the chemical structure was elucidated, the Riley Tar and Chemical Company was founded by P.C. Riley in Indianapolis, United States, who you can see here on this upper right-hand side of the slide. While this tar extraction mechanism was important at the time, it's clearly an inefficient process with a yield of less than 1% or so, which poses its own set of environmental issues when dealing with enormous amounts of waste. As the demand for pyridine grew in at the turn of the last century, I beg your pardon, other processes were developed. In Russia, Alexei Chichibabin is most famous for his process where unsubstituted pyridine was produced from formaldehyde and acetaldehyde. Although the Chichibabin process yields 20%, far better than the 0.1% coal tar method yield, it is still obviously very inefficient. During the 1940s, and driven by the need for synthetic rubber versus natural rubber, synthetic manufacturing processes were first developed. These have been continuously improved, largely through better catalyst development, and yields greater than 90% can be achieved. Commercially today, pyridine is synthesized from acetaldehyde, formaldehyde, and ammonia. One key to the future was the discovery that larger carbon fragments, including the 3-carbon acrolein, is formed in situ as a discrete intermediate. Today, Vertellus, which is the merger of Riley Tar Chemical and Rutherford, has been involved with pyridine for the last 125 years and is the largest global producer of the material. This slide shows pictorially of how pyridine molecule can be altered, either by the ring formation on the left or by side chain modification after the molecule has been synthesized on the right. Several commercially important products often provide these building blocks. On the left side of this slide, vapor phase reactions of acetaldehyde with or without formaldehyde, a single carbon fragment, produce pyridine and its methyl isomers, whereas liquid phase reactions produce primarily 2-methyl-5-ethyl pyridine, a precursor to one of the forms of vitamin B3, in this case, nicotinic acid. On the right side of the slide, more complex fragments can provide direct access to both 2 and 3-methyl pyridine. Creative regioselective syntheses, however, are well known. Some old, some new. For example, take this synthesis of pyridoxine, vitamin B6, needed by your body for utilization of energy in food, red blood production, and effective nerve function. This elegant synthesis starts with an oxazole derived from an amino acid, undergoes a Diels-Alder cyclization, followed by cleavage of the ether, and aromatization leads directly to vitamin B6. Consider the proton pump inhibitor pantoprazole, Protonix. This is prescribed for the treatment of gastroesophageal reflux disease, which many people suffer from. Typical syntheses begin with a 3-substituted or a 2,3 disubstituted pyridine, followed by traditional chemical transformations, oxidations, nitrations, nucleophilic substitutions, etc. Here, this has been cleverly reimagined, starting from a naturally occurring sugar, maltol is establishing a way of introducing the 2,3,4 substituents on the pyridine ring, leading to the pantoprazole. And last, but certainly not least, scientists at Corteva, previously Dow AgroSciences, developed a synthesis to fluoryl picoxamide starting from furfural, an abundant but renewable chemical from biomass. Similarly, this enables construction of the key regiospecific pyridine from which the convergent synthesis of the active fungicide can be executed. So there is plenty of creativity. This graphic shows some of the important commercially available pyridine derivatives. We've simplified this diagram quite a lot, but at one point we counted over 400 pyridine-based products of interest. Pyridines are important in pharmaceuticals and agrochemicals because they're found in biological processes. The nitrogen atom and aromaticity is at the heart of its unique characteristics. It is both soluble in water and oils. It is a tertiary amine and therefore weakly basic, I beg your pardon, and can be quaternized and nitrogen oxidized, has affinity for other metals too, which lead to surface effects, adhesives, etc. The first approach is starting from commercially available pyridines to target the end structure and requires the use of commercially available pyridines as previously identified. This is further divided based on where the chemical transformations are occurring, depending either on the side chain or the actual ring. Both are significantly influenced by the presence of the nitrogen atom. Ring chemistry. Pyridines are different from their benzenoid series in that they are typically resistant to electrophilic attack, for example, chlorination, nitration. But they do undergo nucleophilic reactions such as amination with ammonia. Quaternization and nitrogen oxidation of the nitrogen atom influence chemistries too. Some consider the chemical behavior of pyridines to be more like that of nitrobenzenes. And I'd like to use this slide on ring reactivity to illustrate the differences with some examples. In the middle of this slide is pyridine. Directly above that is chloropyridine. This chlorination is accomplished by radical promoted high temperature vapor phase chlorination rather than direct electrophilic liquid chlorination. 2-chloropyridine that results can then be used in typical nucleophilic substituents where it goes further on to be used in drugs and its use as a biocide. Moving around the page, alkylation of the nitrogen atom, in this case with a long chain alkyl chloride, provides cetylpyridinium chloride, which, like many quaternary salts, is used as a bactericide and again a biocide. Antivirucidal activity has also been reported here too. On the bottom right are two examples of Homo coupling of the pyridine molecule. In the case of the 4,4-bipyridyl, sodium metal can be used in a Vertellus reaction to produce an initial radical couple, which can then be oxidized prior to methylation to the non-selective herbicide paraquat. The thermodynamically more stable 4,4-bipyridyl being the product. Latter approaches to this same product start with the quaternized pyridinium salt, but are somewhat similarly coupled via cyanide-mediated charge transfer complexes prior to oxidation, again to paraquat. Diquat, directly below the pyridine, can be made by coupling 2 chloropyridines, similar to the benzene series, but here is coupled using nickel, in which the chemistry of the nitrogen atom and association to the metal dictate the outcome to produce a 2,2 coupled product. Sodium amide and pyridine conveniently in liquid ammonia lead directly to 2-aminopyridine, From this, electrophilic reactions are now possible. And what's shown here is sequential chlorination occurs, leading to products of commercial importance. Reduction of pyridine by catalytic hydrogenation is more simply accomplished than in the benzene series. In this case, piperidine is produced and is used for a variety of pharmaceutical applications as well as industrial applications in the vulcanization of rubber. Partial reduction to dihydro and tetrahydropyridines is possible too, but usually through the use of metal hydrides or dissolving metals where the hydrogen delivery can be more readily controlled. To overcome reduced reactivities of pyridines, more forcing conditions are often used: temperature, pressure, reactive materials. But with higher energies, reaction pathways can and do change, and radical rather than ionic processes occur, leading to loss of regiospecificity and more impurities. Sidechain chemistry. I'd like to illustrate this using 3-methylpyridine, known as beta-picoline, shown on this slide. In the middle of the slide, slightly to the left, is the beta-picoline 3-methylpyridine molecule. Vapor phase chlorination can produce both ring and sidechain chlorination, leading to the 2-chloro-5-trichloromethylpyridine, an important intermediate for crop protection products. But here, ring isomers are also produced. These can be suppressed, but not entirely eliminated. Although not shown here, 2-methylpyridine, alpha-picoline, reacts more readily in vapor as well as liquid phase to produce the analogous 2-chloro-6-trichloromethylpyridine. And similar to its beta-derived cousin, this is also used significantly in crop protection products. Oxidation with ammonia, amoxidation, produces the cyanoderivatives. Hydration then produces vitamin B3, here represented by nicotinamide. Similarly to toluene, the 3 different picolines, 2, 3, and 4-methylpyridine, can be oxidized with a variety of oxidants to the carboxylic acid derivatives. The products themselves, however, have varying degrees of thermal stability, with the 3-methylpyridine being the most stable, and 2-methylpyridine and the picolinic acid being the least stable. Here, direct oxidation of 3-methylpyridine produces B3 niacin again, which is both niacin and niacinamide being equivalent in terms of their use in the body. Chlorination of niacin requires promotion and formation of the N-oxide. But again, ring chlorination here will occur, but again, isomers also exist. As before, amination occurs, but leads here to both 2-amino-3-methyl and 2-amino-5-methylpyridines. Specific conditions can be used to favor one isomer over the other, but isomers again cannot be eliminated. So that's the trend: suppression but not elimination. N-oxidation can be used to promote derivatization as indicated, but again, impurities and isomers cannot be eliminated. And so as the required targets become more complex, there is a limit to the techniques that can be used to avoid byproducts, isomers, as indicated. Before we move on to consider more convergent approaches, I want to touch on coupling. We've already shown examples of Homo coupling reactions in the production of herbicides paraquat and diquat. A general summary of the different coupling reaction is presented on this slide from Heck to Stille. As is shown, the coupling reaction name changes with the type of reagent: olefin for Heck, boronic acid for Suzuki, alkyne for Sonogashira, and tin for Stille, in the coupling of an aromatic halide. In our case, we have shown a pyridine halide to represent this. For its many advantages, the coupling reactions, a big concern is the high cost of the catalyst itself used in the process. To address this, much work has been done in the recovery and reuse of the catalyst itself. Generally, coupling reactions use palladium as the catalyst with appropriate ligands, typically trisubstituted phosphorus. Suzuki coupling reaction has seen the most use in commercial processing, and we will discuss later 3 examples of that in making pharmaceuticals. 3 references are shown here where the researchers focused on addressing the cost of the palladium catalyst used in the coupling reactions. The first reference describes a homogeneous system where the final coupled product is precipitated from the reaction mixture. The catalyst solution, after treatment, can be recycled back into the process. The pattern here provides a flow diagram for the process for those interested. Secondly, in a heterogeneous system where the nano palladium catalyst is supported on a layered double metal hydroxide, in this example with magnesium and aluminum. The authors successfully tested the 4 different coupling reactions, Heck through Stille, referred to earlier. In addition, they found to have the possibility of catalyst recycle without the use of the phosphorus ligands attached to the being required. The third reference describes a heterogeneous catalyst system in which a homopolymer of 4-vinyl pyridine is used as a support for palladium chloride. The recycle of the catalyst in a Suzuki-Biura recoupling has been demonstrated. This is shown on the next slide. This reference leads us to believe that Reilex resins, a cross-linked poly-4-vinyl pyridine polymer, as a support for palladium catalyst, should be able to perform coupling reactions like Suzuki, with being heterogeneous should enable easier recovery and reuse of the catalyst. Another possible advantage here may be that we can possibly dispense with the phosphorus ligands required typically in Suzuki coupling reactions. In the 2 examples shown here, pyridine ring containing an API where Suzuki coupling has been used are provided. For perampanel, an anti-epileptic drug approved in 2012, here a Suzuki coupling is used twice to introduce the 2-pyridyl group to the 5 position of the 2-pyridone ring, as well as a 2-cyanophenyl group at the 3 position of the 2-pyridone ring. And in voxelotor, which was approved for the use of sickle cell anemia almost a decade ago, the introduction of the pyrazole ring at the 2 position of the pyridine ring has been done using a Suzuki couple. This slide provides a reimagining for the coupling reactions to investigate the possible use of the Reilex poly-4-vinyl pyridine resins as catalyst support. Vertellus's technical brochure provides all the metals that have been supported on this resin as shown in the slide here. Pyridine-based Reilex resins do show a strong affinity for metals, and this is evidenced in the work shown in Vertellus's technical literature. These resins are used today in the manufacture of acetic acid, having been shown as the catalyst support for rhodium, as well as to capture rhodium for recycle and recovery. Rhodium being the potent material used to catalyze the carbonylation of methanol, which is the bulk of the acetic acid produced industrially today. Vinyl pyridine polymers are available as Homo polymers as low as 10,000 average molecular weight, and vinyl benzene cross-linked resins for use in both batch and continuous processes. As more complex targets are required, then more convergent syntheses similarly are needed, and limit the value of the building blocks available. This second approach to of ring synthesis depends on the commercial availability of substituted carbon fragments, especially C3 and higher. Acrolein and their derivatives, previously identified as discrete intermediates in vapor phase synthesis, are logical choices. To illustrate the point, I'd like to use the 2,5 substituted pattern as an example. The need was for 2-chloro-5-chloromethylpyridine, CCMP, a pivotal intermediate used in insecticide manufacture. Initial synthesis and indeed manufacturing processes began with 3-methylpyridine. However, chlorination leads to isomeric mixtures, which in addition to being wasteful, are very hard, if not physically impractical to separate. In a regio-selective product synthesis of CCMP, it's produced without the formation of any isomers. Here, reacting cyclopentadiene and acrolein followed by acrylonitrile allows the pentane nitrile and cyclopentadiene to be reformed upon heating, with the addition of chlorine across the acrolein derivative enables ring closure with dehydrohalogenation leading to CCMP. This chemistry was utilized to significantly grow this product line. This example exemplifies the need for more creative solutions for more complex challenges. This sequence shows the use of C3 derivatives, acrolein reacting with substituted carbonyl compounds to give 2,3,5 tri-substituted pyridines regio-specifically. Apulitamide, another new drug approved in 2018, is a non-steroidal and anti-androgen medication primarily used in the treatment of prostate cancer. In this example of a 2,3-disubstituted pyridine, 2-difluoromethyl-nicotinic acid ester in this case, the synthesis achieved thus. The 4, 5, and 6 carbons of the pyridine ring come from a malondialdehyde derivative, which is identified on the left-hand side of this slide. It's built from the C1 fragment of a Vilsmeier reagent and used to formulate a butyl vinyl ether. This is inefficient, hazardous, and generates considerable waste, but yet only provides modest yields between 60 and 70%. The alternative acrolein process is much higher yielding and atom efficient. The third option, combining both approaches. As previously illustrated, combining ring synthesis with simple building block transformations has been used for carbon efficiency, economic savings, reduced waste. Ring transformations, method 1, and ring synthesis, method 2, have been used in preparations of these APIs. For further reading, I'd recommend the following articles. There are many excellent reviews on pyridine synthesis and its reactivity, and our team at Vertellus would be happy to provide any further information as needed. In conclusion, I'd like to say that the synthetic strategy here is dependent on the complexity of the target. As you can see, multiple approaches are available, building from existing commercial materials and or multi-carbon fragments to build in the needed regioselectivity. Pyridine-based polymers similarly can be used as supports for the study and reuse and recycle of expensive catalysts. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Dr. Jim Keay. We would now have time to take questions from our audience. If you would like to submit questions, just send them through via the chat function and we will read them out and answer them. In the meantime, I've received the very first question concerning the Reimagining resin. What benefits provides the cross-linking, and what other metals other than palladium does this benefit?
Thank you. So the cross-linking, which is simply a divinyl benzene, serves to make the materials insoluble in all other in solvents. I guess that's irrelevant, but so the reactions are heterogeneous. The degree of cross-linking will help to limit the swelling of the polymer in different solvents, and these range from 2% to 25%. 2% can swell in some solvents, but is often used in batch processing for the removal of metals or acids in non-aqueous systems. The higher 25% cross-linked polymers and their bead form enables them to be used in columns in continuous processing, and they do not swell as much, so reducing the hydraulic expansion risks in use. In terms of other metals, I referenced rhodium in the discussion a few minutes earlier. That's practically seen use. I think iridium likewise. These materials have also found use for recovering and separating metals in high oxidizing acid environments, for instance, like nitric acid, where many materials are soluble. These materials, being based on the pyridine molecule, are less likely to be degraded or nitrated in that media. And obviously the nitration of organics to produce high energy species becomes its own separate risk. So if these materials can contend with these high strength oxidizing acid medias in which most metals, for instance, are soluble, and can be used to separate them for either environmental or purification methods. But again, if there is a specific interest, our team would be very happy to direct a more specific question or answer it. Hopefully that answers the question.
Wonderful, thank you. At the minute, we don't have any further questions come in. I would suggest if you've got any further questions later on, please feel free to reach out to Dr. Jim Keay and his team of Vertellus via the platform afterwards. I would say that marks the end of this presentation. Thank you very much to our presenter. Thank you very much to all attendees for watching. Goodbye.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.